the most goated franchises in fantasy history is Nope, just kidding. It is Lord of the Rings. And those original trilogy movies are untouched and unmatched when it comes to epic fantasy movies in the theater. And they tried to replicate it with The Hobbit, stretch out one movie into three. Didn't quite work as much. They tried to do it with an Amazon TV series. Didn't work as much. Maybe the second season was a bit better. But as we can see, since we moved away from the original Peter Jackson trilogy, it's been hard to adapt Tolkien's world. But it seems like they're trying to go back in the well again because a sequel, that's right, a sequel, not the Hunt for Gollum prequel that is coming, but a sequel to the original Peter Jackson trilogy is coming. And you cannot believe who they got as the writer. That's right, my friends. Our boy, Stephen Colbert, is being reported that him and Peter Jackson are making a sequel to the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. This comes to us from USA Today. They say the comedian has announced a surprising new gig for after The Late Show ends in May. He's set to write a new film in the Lord of the Rings franchise with his son. Warner Brothers made an announcement in a social media clip shared last week in which Lord of the Rings director Peter Jackson has a video chat with Colbert. The comedian explained he came up with the idea for the movie after reading 6 early chapters in the Fellowship of the Ring that were not adapted in Peter Jackson's Rings movie trilogy. He said, I thought, oh, wait, maybe that could be its own story. That could fit into the larger story. He said, could we make something that was completely faithful to the books while also being completely faithful to the movies that you guys had already made? Colbert added that he developed the idea with his screenwriter son, Peter McGee, and pitched it to Jackson about 2 years ago. At the time, he didn't think he would have time to work on the movie, but that has changed after the cancellation of The Late Show on CBS. He said, I knew I couldn't do that and do the show at the same time, but it turns out I'm going to be free starting this summer. He added, so if you'll excuse me, I've got to finish a television show and I've got to write a movie script, but I will see you all in the Shire. Colbert's film has a working title, The Lord of Rings, Shadow of the Past. And Colbert and McGee will write it with Philippa Boyens, who is the original writer of the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. The synopsis reads, 14 years after the passing of Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin set out to retrace the first steps of their adventure. Meanwhile, Sam's daughter, Eleanor, has discovered a long-buried secret and is determined to uncover why the War of the Ring was very nearly lost before it began. So, Colbert is a famously hardcore Lord of the Rings fan, as we know. He's discussed it for years. He even made a cameo in 2013's prequel, The Hobbit. He was just a kid racing forward and photographing and posing next to the statues and props. He was a huge Uber fan, Peter Jackson recalls, when he was on the set. And so the question remains, can a super fan write a sequel to one of the most iconic fantasy trilogies of all time? When you heard this news, Zach, what did you think about them doing a sequel to the iconic trilogy, which I'm not sure if you like? And then also, what do you think about Stephen Colbert being the person to help write and shepherd the script?
So I have to start off by saying, because you're about to get me slandered, I do like the original trilogy.
Okay.
I
I
just
forgot what it
say
was.
certain things to troll the diehards because sometimes they can get really toxic about
Okay.
how they feel about the movies. But I do like those movies a lot.
They're
I love
diehard.
the first one the most. I really, really enjoyed my time with that one.
Okay. Return of the
I
King?
was like,
You didn't
huh?
you didn't mess with Return of the King?
That's my second favorite. I think
Okay.
it's Fellowship, Return, and then
Okay.
Two Towers.
That's pretty common. I've heard that order before too, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, with Stephen Colbert potentially writing a
Crazy
Lord
to
of
even say
Rings,
it out loud.
yeah, with his son, who I don't even know what his son has written yet. I was like, what? And a lot of people talking about like he's like a Lord of the Rings aficionado. Like he's one of those guys that know it the most.
Right.
And that could be like a good thing if you're a consultant, but it could be a bad thing if you're a creative because you want to make it so much like the thing that you love. And sometimes there are things in these books that are not adaptable. So you try to force it so hard and it can get in the way of the actual creative process of making a film that people love. That was the one concern that I have. It's like a positive that he loves it so much, but it could be a negative when it comes to the final product.
Right. Right.
This,
Kind of like Filoni with Star Wars. Like sometimes when you're steeped in it too much, that isn't the right, for a fresh take, that might not be the right mindset that you need to get into it and make it special, not just make it a retread of what we've seen before.
Yeah, and retread is another issue that I have. I think the big thing I'm having, this feels like a lot like what's happened with Star Wars, where they keep going back to the same era. And it would be nice if they could kind of just move on and start a brand new story that is, inspired by the world of Tolkien, but create something new. Because how are they going to do this without de-aging? And and de-aging never looks good. You know what I'm saying? I'm already worried about the Hunt for Gollum, because they're good. This is in between Lord of the Rings films, meaning that you have to bring back these these older actors, and it's just gonna look weird if you have to smooth out their face and make them look like kids again. So that's the parts that I worry. I worry that he might be too close to the product. And I'm worried about the fact that this is going to be a movie that's set in between or like during or maybe a couple years after those, because these actors don't look like they will be a couple years after, unless they're talking about brand new characters that were there the whole time that we never got to explore with. So those are my only worries. And the fact that he's not an experienced screenwriter, I know he wrote many great years of television, but it's very different to write what is probably going to be a $200 million film, to write a script for that.
Yeah, at the minimum.
At the minimum, yeah. If Project Hail Mary was like 220, this is going to be at least 200.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the Stephen Colbert of it all is quite interesting. I do think Stephen Colbert is a extremely intelligent person, someone that has to be on night in and night out, which is not easy to run that kind of show. And so in those regards, I think he has the ability, but we haven't seen it. He co-wrote like one movie in 2006. It's not a lot of experience, but he is a diehard Lord of the Rings fan. Like he knows this front and back. And so I think that's why they give him more leeway, is because he is like a known super fan. But can a super fan make a great movie? And he has other writers on this. Like Philippa Boyens wrote the original trilogy. However, she also wrote King Kong, which was not that great script wise. The Lovely Bones, which I enjoyed, but it did not do well and it was not perceived well. And then the Hobbit movies, which were hit or miss for a lot of people. And I think overall people could agree it was a big step down from the heights of the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. So I don't know if having her on gives me faith that this time is going to be better than the last few that have happened. So it's quite interesting that they're so full steam ahead with this. I guess it's been in the work for a couple years and he finally got the green light. So it's gone through the proper channels, but it remains to be seen. Now, if Lord of the Rings, The Hunt for Gollum comes out and it's like, wow, that was great, this is back on track, then people will be more on board for this and more hungry for this because there is that natural bookend of connections. This is the prequel before the original trilogy, and then the other one is the bookend after the trilogy. So I think that would be really cool. But that means more is now riding on the hunt for Gollum because you already set it up in people's minds. Well, there's going to be another one after this. So if this one isn't good, why would I be interested in the other one? So
franchise
you're kind
momentum.
of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit, and that could be very dangerous. Another question I have is they didn't really mention the director of the movie. They said Peter Jackson is overseeing the script, producing, yada, 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 but they didn't mention who was actually directing it. And so it's like, is Andy Serkis going to be the director of this movie as well? What do you think?
I think that's a possibility if Hunt for Gollum does well. Andy Serkis doesn't have
a lot's writing.
He doesn't have a great track record as a director yet.
Venom. We are Venom.
I mean, so not to say he's not a good director, is just that maybe the projects he picked just people weren't interested in, right? Right. And I think that there's a possibility if Hunt for Gollum is a banger and he does a great job with it, and he's familiar with the universe as well, that he could just hop onto this. And maybe right now they're building connections between Hunt for Gollum and Shadow of the Past purposely to make it so it's easy for him to jump from one to the other. Right, so I think that would be a good job. Who's another big time director that can handle that scope? That's Lord not like, huh?
I was like Lord and Miller.
But even them, they haven't handled the scope of what Lord of the Rings needs to be, right? They haven't had that yet. Or do we just give someone a chance that never did it before? That would be pretty cool. Because Nolan is someone that done it, but he's not going to do it. And Denis is also someone that can do it, but he's not going to do it.
No, you can't get those. That would be crazy. I think like what's his name? J.A. Bayona would be good. He did like the Lord of the Rings show. He did Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom. He did A Monster Calls, which is fantastic. If you've never seen that, came out in 2016. So he's had dabbled in bigger stuff like Jurassic World. He did a little bit of the TV series. He did a Society of the Snow, which is a little bit more personal.
That movie was good. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. So he's had the big scope. He's had the smaller personal. So I think he could be a potential person to shepherd a big personal fantasy epic into the theaters.
And we were just talking about the Dungeons and Dragons game night guys.
I was thinking about them too. Yeah.
And since they did Dungeons and Dragons, it's a possibility they could pull this off. They would just have to kind of rein in their comedy.
Funny. Yeah. I was just going to say,
they got to rein in a bit because Fellowship of the Ring was a more whimsical and had a little bit more humor than the other two. The other two got really dark. Though the first half of the first movie was really whimsical and jokey. So I can see maybe they'll be able to tie in a little bit of their comedy in this, but they would have to get pulled back. They can't turn because people will be like, "Oh, this is the MCU-fication of Lord of the Rings." You don't want to hear that.
No, definitely not. And we also just don't make this new Lord of the Rings sequel a new trilogy. Just make one epic movie. That's all you need to focus on. Don't focus on, okay, and if this does well, we can start a new trilogy based off, the older Sam and Pip and whatever. Like, no, just make an epic final conclusion of these characters because it existed in the books. It was several chapters in the Fellowship of the Ring. And so it's not like they're just making up out of thin air. Yeah. So it's a great way to can have the nostalgia of the original trilogy, but also bookmark that stamp as a conclusion. That is a great way to do it. But as we know with these big studios, they want more. If it does well, we want more.
Yeah. If it makes a Billy, we getting more.
Yeah, if it makes a Billy, we getting more. But I think with this, like you said, original trilogy, like Star Wars, with this original Lord of the Rings trilogy, you cap it off with, what is it? Shadow of the
Past.
Empire? No, just kidding. Shadow of the Empire. Yeah, you cap it off with Shadow of the Past, and that's it. And that is the end of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. And then don't do it for a while. Leave it on the show.
Let Peter Jackson direct this. We didn't even talk about him directing the film. Just bring him back.
Does he want to? I don't know.
Probably not.
I feel like he got pretty burnt out because even with The Hobbit, he wasn't supposed to do it. Guillermo del Toro was supposed to direct The Hobbit, and there was a scheduling issue or something like that. And so Guillermo had to back out, and they were full steam ahead with the studio. So Peter Jackson had to go in there and ended up being the 3 movies of a director. And so I don't know if it burned him out from it, because he wasn't like, and I'm directing it. It was more like, I'll be there to watch over.
I'll supervise this.
Yeah. And so it's like, I bet you they asked and he's still unsure, is what it feels like.
Yeah.
And so
I feel like it's such a commitment.
Yes, you want a person that's young, hungry, committed, not age-wise, but you know what I mean? That expression, young and hungry, like it's day in, day out, in Middle Earth, ready to go. And that takes a lot of work. Ooh. And Peter Jackson has given his time and done the work.
I got an idea.
Okay.
Who's the guy who directs Mad Max Fury Road?
Oh, my dad. No, George Hamilton. No, George.
Is it Romero?
No. That's the zombie movies.
Yeah. I'm acting like I don't have Google.
It's George Miller.
George Miller, man. He directed Furiosa like a young person. He's like 80 years old. And he has the scope. He has the feel.
Yes.
I would love for him to tackle it, and it would give it a different look than the Peter Jackson films. I would love for him to
maybe that's good. Maybe that's good to give it a different look. But, you know, unfortunately, I don't know if they're going to take a chance on him because Furiosa did not do well. But it's George Miller, man. Like, he's had bangers. Like, one stinker should not cut him out of it. But, man, going for someone that's over 80, I don't know.
I want to say Furiosa wasn't a stinker in terms of quality. It was just in terms of stinker box.
Absolutely not. No. I for a lot of it, I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was nearly the height of Fury Road, but for all intents and purposes, it's better than most movies we've seen. You know, like so. Yes. But that would be a good one too. Yeah. So I don't know. But the question is, what do you guys think about Stephen Colbert writing the sequel to the original Lord of the Rings trilogy? Do you think him and his son are the right people for the job? Do you think this should have been hands in more of a qualified writer besides Philippa, who is the original Lord of the Rings script writer? Or do you think that they should just let this part of the Middle Earth saga rest and go somewhere else in the timeline and leave these characters be, which could be the case as well, but it doesn't seem like it's happening. So who do you want for director? Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts on Colbert, guys.